Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sync Up Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things OneDrive. OneDrive is the home for all of the files that you care about most, and we're here to take you behind the scenes to get the insights and the knowledge to make your experience and your user's experience better. We are back after a kind of short summer break. I'm really excited for this. My name is Stephen Rice. I'm a principal product manager on the OneDrive team, and I'm joined, as always, by my fellow OneDrive aficionado, Arvind Mishra.
Hello, everyone. I'm Arvind, and I'm a principal product architect on the OneDrive team. Today, we're talking about the latest feature in OneDrive, audio overviews. We are joined this week by Cass Weber and Cammi Mejia. Yay! Hey, y'all. Well, we're so glad you're here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey everyone, as Arvind said, my name is Cass Weber. I am a PM on the mobile team. Very excited to be here.
I think this is your first time on the podcast, right, Cass?
It sure is.
Super exciting. Cammi, how about you? Tell everyone about yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Cammi Mejia. I am also a product manager on the OneDrive Photos and Mobile team, and I'm super excited to be here. I've never done something like this before, so super cool.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on the podcast to talk about audio, which is a podcast is audio. Like, that's a thing, right?
So meta.
Like, you could say this is an audio overview about audio overviews. Does that work?
Almost.
Okay, but before we can get into the meat of the topic, we can do our icebreakers. Arvind, there's some very exciting news. Let's talk about it.
Hey, stop what you're doing, unless you're backing up your files, because October 8th is about to blow your digital socks off.
It's the OneDrive digital event of the year. Copilot meets cloud storage in a cosmic collision of productivity and pizzazz.
Get the inside scoop from Microsoft's finest, Jeff Teeper, Jason Moore, and the OneDrive Dream Team.
That's Arvind and I. We're going to be there. Live demos, future features, a Q&A where you can ask the team anything, so long as it's about OneDrive. Even if Copilot can do your laundry, it doesn't, but that's okay.
Register now at aka.ms/OneDrive event. October 8th, 9 a.m. Be there or be stuck in 2022.
Before we can get into the meat of our discussion about audio overviews today, we always want to have a little bit of fun with an icebreaker to get things started. Sometimes these are serious, sometimes these are fun. It kind of just depends on how Arvind's feeling. So Arvind, take it away.
Hey, all right. Cammi and Cass, this is going to be a very topical icebreaker, I think. It's pretty simple. Tell our wonderful audience, what are the podcasts what are your go-to podcasts these days?
Ooh, that's a really good one. I've been an avid listener to Science Versus for a long time if I'm feeling something educational. If I'm feeling spunky, just want to have some fun, I'm listening to Petty Crimes. It's basically a podcast that gets into like just the most ridiculous, littlest crimes, quote unquote, you could ever imagine, but the backstories are so hilarious, and I just love hearing other people's drama and gossip that I have nothing to do with.
Living vicariously through other people's crime. I love it.
Yeah, usually I lie during these and just pick a like super professional sciencey sounding podcast, but I'll give some like shred of truth for the sake of sync up. I listen to a lot of like YouTubers' podcasts because I only want to really listen to podcasts when I'm looking to like laugh. So there's some YouTubers that I really like. I think their names are Brooke and Connor, and it's Brooke and Connor Make a Podcast. I think they're so funny, and they just talk about pop culture and what's happening and kind of make jokes about it. And then another one is that Trixie Mattel and Katya from RuPaul's Drag Race have their own podcast as well, and they are the funniest people on earth. So they always make me laugh.
Man, a lot of good podcast recommendations here. What about you, Arvind?
Well, I've got two. One is like, the serious businessy thing, and it's Pivot. I like the political commentary as well as the business commentary from Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. And then I'd say like for sheer entertainment, it's got to be Smartless. I think anything that Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean, I can't remember his last name, but anything that those guys do, sign me up. They're some of the funniest guys on the planet here, is what I would say. Steven, what about you? What are you listening to?
Oh man, I see. I have the same problem as Cammi, which is I feel like I don't listen to a ton of podcasts, and the ones I do tend to be like very specific, and so I don't feel like they make for good like enterprise ready content. But why not? I think the two I listen to, one is so I play a fair amount of Magic the Gathering, and so there's a podcast called the Jerry T podcast with Dave Shields, and it's just like kind of an old school Magic player and a friend of his as well that they both play kind of competitively, and so they'll talk through latest decks and stuff like that. Always super interesting to see. The other one, maybe slightly more interesting for a broader audience. He's a YouTuber as well, but his name is Noah Caldwell, I think Gervais, something like that. And he does these very intensive deep dives into various video games as I don't know if I want to call it like as art, but like these like narrative deconstructions of series of games. And he'll also track, how these games have evolved over time, various series. You can look at some of the decisions that were made, and I always find them super interesting. His longest one, when he did like the Resident Evil series, which if you're not familiar, has like, I don't know, 16 games or something crazy. And it was like an 8 or 9 hour podcast, which I think I've listened to twice now because it was just really good. But yeah, there you go.
That's a lot of Resident Evil. I'm shocked that you didn't actually mention the Ion Cannon. Like that should be on everyone's podcast favorites. Just for our audience, Steven runs another podcast that is, I think it's the longest running
Star Wars podcast with the same set of hosts. It might actually be just the longest running Star Wars podcast at this point. Like, it's not something we track super closely, but yeah, I was trying not to pat myself on the back, Arvind.
Wait, this is new information to me. I did not know that.
Maybe a topic for another time.
So I want to kick things off and pitch it to both of you. I'd love to hear from both of you on this. Like, tell the audience about audio overviews. Like, what are they? Who are they for? Like, just give us like the 10,000 foot view of this feature.
Yeah. Well, audio overviews are basically an audio output. So it's a summary of your file, and this is for your Word docs or PDFs because that's where you usually have a lot of content that you need to digest. So this is for really anybody who is working and has documents or is receiving documents and needs a way to catch up on them, maybe in a more interesting way or in a way that's quicker. I know most of us are running from meeting to meeting, and sometimes we don't have a ton of time to digest or catch up on documents. So this is a way to do that a little bit quicker in a very summarized, get to the point way. So yeah, it's really for anybody who receives documents, which is most of us.
I feel like there's so often I get a document and I could like pour through it if I wanted to and I had a lot of time. But maybe that document's kind of dense, maybe it's kind of boring, and I'd rather spice it up and at the same time, absorb all the knowledge from that document. It seems like this would be a great feature for something like that.
Oh yeah, 100%. The intention is to get you the key points as quick as possible.
Nice.
Yeah. So if you're looking to kind of try out the feature today, sitting here listening to the podcast, how do I get started with it? And what sort of options are available for me?
Yeah, I can speak to mobile, and then Cammi, I'll hand it over to you to talk about web. But basically, if you're within the mobile app and you have a document, a Word document or a PDF selected, there will be a little entry point button that says generate an audio overview. Open it up, it will open a full screen of the actual experience, and then you can actually minimize it so you can keep doing whatever you're doing around your phone. Maybe you're on the go, you throw in some headphones, and then you can just, listen to it while you're doing that. But you just gotta open your document and click the button. How about on web, Cammi?
Yeah, it's super similar on web. So if you are a commercial user, or I guess an enterprise user on OneDrive, you can navigate to any file that you are curious about or want to generate an audio overview of, and you can navigate to the Copilot button. You can also click on the 3 dots and navigate to the Copilot menu that way too. And then from there, you can click on generate an audio overview, and it'll pull open this player that'll probably appear in the bottom right. And that player lets you do things like change the speed or the playback speed, pull up the transcript, and you can also even like save certain audios for later if you want to. So it's super easy to generate.
The other cool thing is that it has 2 modes. So we have like a summary mode that just really gets you to the point quickly. But we also have a podcast mode. So it's a little bit, like this, where it's more conversational and there's a little bit more back and forth. So we do default to the summary experience, but you have that option to switch to podcast as well.
Cass or Cammi, for either one of you, I guess. How do we come up with the voices like for this podcast or for our podcast feature here? Like, do we have people that we've actually had recorded in the studio, or did we automatically generate these voices? Like, where do these voices come from?
Yeah, I can talk to that. So this was we worked really closely with a voice team. So they are able to take in the transcript that we generate from the file, and then through some text-to-speech magic, we use AI-generated voices to do the podcast for it. And so we actually experimented with a lot of different voices and did a lot of like rounds of tweaking to make it sound more natural, add in more filler words, make them sound less robotic to get it to the point that it is today. And there's constantly innovation getting done on that team as well, which is really great.
Okay, I have one more question as we're thinking about like the podcast mode with the 2 people. You both had to hear these 2 people talking at each other for months on end. Did we have to tweak who the people were? Was it consistent throughout the process? Like how does that entire process work?
Yeah, I think the way that it worked is that we would give feedback to the voice team every so often about whether or not we wanted to pitch them a little differently, or whether or not their voices should be higher or lower, or if there was too much vocal fry. So we actually ran into an issue where at a time it kind of, actually I can talk about this one. There was a time where one of the voices would slip into a Southern drawl on specific words. And so occasionally he would just kind of be talking, and then all of a sudden he'd be like, the paper. And it just immediately threw it off. It was so recognizable and noticeable that we immediately messaged the voice team and we were like, do you know why he becomes Southern randomly? And I don't know how they fixed it exactly or what prompts they did to change it, but they were able to address it. There was also another instance where this one was less of a mistake and more just like a funny thing that happened. I think there was a pirate mode that was released publicly somewhere that you could pull an API from and put it into. And so one of our engineers jokingly put in pirate mode into audio overviews when we were testing it out. But I think it accidentally made its way into our dog food build. And so people were starting to generate audio overviews and they were like, why does it open with ahoy? And I thought it was incredible. And I had messaged Alejandro and I was like, hey, is this public? And he was like, oh my God, I think it accidentally got cached or something. But that was really great.
I just love this idea that like we're dog fooding this feature internally. We've got like execs that are, trying out the feature to see how it's working, and then they just get like the Southern pirate version of their document. A plus.
I feel like there should be a mode to turn that back on, right? Because there might be that one super boring document that will just be brought to life if you had this pirate mode.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can you tell me, like, let's go back to the beginning when actually let's start. When was the beginning? Because Copilot AI features, have kind of been this storm of development across the industry as a whole. And one of the things I think is always super interesting to see, like, how long does a feature take from start to finish? Often when we're working on, I would say normal product features, sometimes they can take, a pretty long time. So when did we first start working on audio overviews for OneDrive?
I first became aware of audio overviews back in October or November of 2024. Essentially, one of the engineers on one of our AI teams had developed a prototype that could just generate these AI-generated podcasts over files and their content, and it was super magical. And basically, I was told like, "Hey, we're going to try and productize this," and it was just very cool to see it go from a prototype that someone did for some hackathon or in their spare time to becoming now like a full-fledged feature that's rolling out everywhere.
Awesome. And did it always start as kind of this, audio player swap between two-person podcast, audio overview kind of idea, or was it different when it was kind of in incubation, I guess I would call it?
Yeah, when we were first getting started with it, it was mainly scoped to two-person podcasts. we had seen that there was a lot of like strong response on Twitter to having AI generated podcasts, and people seemed to really like be enamored with them. And so we thought it was something that we would go after. And then it wasn't until January 2025 or so when we decided to maybe expand that scope. Cass, I don't know if you want to talk more on like that process.
Yeah, I think we should because it's an interesting one, right? Like we started with one intention and one vision, and it kind of mold into something else over time because we got more context and more information. So there was a bunch of user research done because we want to make sure that we're building the right thing for our audience at the right time. And so what we basically heard in that time frame is that our users were really more so interested in the summary over the podcast. Not that they didn't want the podcast, it's just, they were more invested in the summary. And so we got together and kind of thought, okay, maybe we need to pivot this a little bit and put more of the energy into the summary and also still have the podcast as well. So I think as mobile got involved around that time frame, like January, that's when we first started kicking things off, and we kind of jumped in right when we decided to kind of make this pivot. So around that time frame, like our energy really shifted, putting a lot of time and effort into getting that summary right.
It's kind of an interesting pivot, Cass. We listen to Twitter, but then which might have said one thing. And it's often like customers will do that. They'll say one thing, but when they're actually using a product, then they're like, actually, this isn't quite the thing I wanted. And so through research that, we got informed of that fact. I'm curious, were there any other kind of pivots? Because I always find this aspect of product making super fascinating. It's like, what were the other choices that we could or that we could have made along the way?
Yeah, I think this was the main one. And just to like elaborate on your point, like, yes, there was a lot of buzz around podcasts, but once we did the research, we found out like what OneDrive users wanted.
Mhm.
And that's what we really wanted to ground like the direction in. Everybody's got a little bit of a different user cohort and how they build features for them. So yeah, that was our biggest pivot. I mean, there were a bunch of other things that we could have invested in at the time, but for us, we really just wanted to get this to market as soon as possible and hero that summary audio overview.
So we realized, audio overview may be the right way to go. And then I just assumed we were done, right? Because shipping Copilot features is as easy as deciding what you're going to do and then, out the door. I can only assume you're going to corroborate my story.
Oh yes, yes, that got us into the next wave of things we needed to figure out, which is with any AI or Copilot feature, and that is how do you define what good is? Because it's an output, right? It's not just, you're creating a flow and you design it out and then you push that into production. For this, it's you have an input, which is the document, and then you have an output, which is the AI generated audio overview. And so what does good look like there? So Cammi, do you actually want to talk a little bit about the weighting and stuff that went into that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, like Cass was saying, the difficulty with AI features and Copilot features is that now we live in a world where things are non-deterministic. So I can put in an input, and the output I get, I can generate that 10 different times, and I'll probably get 10 different responses that are similar but not exactly the same. And so we have to mitigate those responses and make sure they all score close enough for it to be an acceptable answer, or an acceptable response. Especially then, we were working with a team to do the two-person podcast mode. So when we proposed one person to them, they told us like, we haven't evaluated for that. We don't really have a rubric set for that. Can you handle working on those things? Like, we'll need to kind of not necessarily start from scratch, but we'll need to start redoing a lot of that work that went into making two-person podcasts to where it was today. And so when we did that, we kind of looked at the rubric for two-person and tried to see what we could grab from it and what we needed to improve with. So, for two-person, they were looking at things like storytelling and how many metaphors and, personifications and flowery language were used in it. Whereas in the research we got back in January was telling us that people wanted something shorter, more to the point, concise, simple, and easy for them to follow. And so we had to build a new rubric that we wanted to measure all of these audio outputs against. So we looked at things like clarity, brevity. Obviously, accuracy was something common between 2-person and 1-person, because we want to make sure that the information we're outputting is in fact correct. And so we just kind of had to generate a different rubric to compare these 1-person audio overviews to better fit our user needs that we found back in January.
It's interesting. So then, like, okay, so let's say you have your rubric about, and you know what you want either your 2-person or your summaries to sound like. Like, how do you go about like actually testing it and making sure they are good before you put it out in the wild?
Yeah. Okay. So that gets into the methodology of it. And basically, um, that rubric that Cammi mentioned, it's a weighted rubric, and there's numbers attached to each of the ratings, ultimately leading to like what is our bar, what is our success metric that we need to hit numerically. And when we looked at the how do we get there, how do we hit our success metric, we first needed to figure out, okay, we need to look at a breadth of different kinds of documents, because that's what people are using, all kinds of things under the sun. Maybe some for it's a marketing, a go to market plan, and for others it's a scientific document, so we really needed to figure out, okay, we need to look at a variety of different content, a variety of different lengths of content, so we can see what the output ended up being in terms of the length of the output, and then kind of piece together um, how we were going to evaluate all of those things. And obviously, you want to cover a ton of stuff. So it's a lot to kind of mull through. What we ended up doing is having kind of a human eval team that would get together twice a week. And we would all read one of these types of documents ahead of time. We would then listen to the output. We would then rate it against the rubric, look at the transcript of that audio output, make any notes, and then pull the Uber score together and discuss. And the outcome of that discussion was how we wanted to tweak the prompt going forward. And then we would do it all over again in the next session.
I realize it may be hard to have like an exact count, but how many of those sessions or kind of evaluations do you think you did between January when we were kind of making this pivot on the feature and when it started rolling out earlier this year?
Oh gosh. Cammy, we met like twice a week for majority of that time, right?
Yeah, we met twice a week for maybe 3 months, I want to say. And then also we did asynchronous reviews as well, because we just also had to hit a certain number and make sure that we were all aligned on it as we were churning out more and more versions.
Were there ever any versions that you felt like were particularly memorable or silly or out there, like way outside the norm?
Oh God. Oh my gosh.
So
In
many.
the beginning, a lot of them. But in the beginning, I remember when we were listening, it was actually interesting, because when we were evaluating 2-person, it was hearing the output that made us realize that we needed to go to 1-person in addition to the research. And so I think it was just hearing like the stiff, uh, the flowery conversations between them, or sometimes they would like laugh a little too long and it was a little scary, that we were like, let's get rid of like overly long laughter and let's maybe make it 1-person and see if that goes away.
Now I have to ask. I know you're not going to know this, but is it like overly long laughter? Is that like 5 seconds?
Yeah, I want to say it was about 5 seconds, and it was as if Siri was kind of reading out like ha 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 ha, and it was that. Or sometimes it would get stuck and glitch and hold on the ha for too long. It was terrifying, but it was great. It was great.
Steven, I feel like we should take some notes here so we could optimize our podcast here. I don't know if I should thank you or feel bad for you guys like having to read all these boring documents. I'm curious though. I'll thank you actually, because the feature is amazing and I use it all the time. I'm curious, is there a sweet spot for document sizes that where this works really good? Like what would you recommend like people kind of use this feature on, I guess, or kind of content or length or type or whatever?
Yeah, I would say probably like medium to large length documents, only
Okay.
because that's the kind of stuff that you're like, dang, I really don't want to read this whole thing. I just want to get the key points and kind of move on with my life. So Yeah, anything where you're feeling intimidated or wow, this is dense, or I don't have time for this. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the right time to go ahead and tap the audio overview button.
Yeah, I kind of find that like anytime I get somebody sends me a document that's over like 5 pages, I end up using this feature quite a bit.
Yeah, and on mobile specifically, like oftentimes it's like, oh, okay, I really need to, instead of catching up on this document sitting at my computer, I need to go on a little mental health walk. So that's also a great time where you can just listen to one while you're walking around the block or just doing anything else that's hands free. So that's nice too.
Yeah, and I guess, now that the feature, I think it started rolling out, right? When is it fully available to everyone now?
Yep, sure is. Anybody who has a Copilot license and is also a commercial user, you have it across Android, iOS, and web.
Well, Stephen, before we move off of audio overviews, like, do you have any final questions for Cammi and Cass here?
I mean, I was gonna, now that it's rolled out, I'm curious if, how do you both feel about how the audience and users are taking advantage of the feature? You obviously you've worked on it for months. You refined and listened to all these overviews. How does it feel to have it in people's hands and have people using it?
It feels awesome because it was a grind to get to this point. I'll say for mobile, we just completed our rollouts like last month. So it's still early in terms of like hearing back from users and stuff. But so far, what we've heard is good feedback. People are using and enjoying the feature. But I know, Cammy, you've been out for a little bit longer and you've heard a decent amount of feedback on web.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very, very happy that the feature is out. This was one of my first major projects, just working in the industry and then also working at Microsoft in general. So it's really great to see it out. And then also, I'm just like super grateful to have worked with Cass and so many other people who are just very passionate about getting this feature out. And we worked a lot of long hours, and those eval sessions were also sometimes harrowing to listen to the same voices over and over and over again. And so I'm just really proud of what we put out, and then also just really happy to see all the feedback that we've gotten, whether it's positive or negative, because any feedback really helps us push it into a better direction and guides us to, figure out where we want to go next and how we can make it better for people. That's ultimately the goal, is to make this something like usable, right? Which is why we pivoted to one person in the first place. So I love all the feedback that we're getting. It's great to see people's comments on it.
100%. But yeah, we definitely listen to so many of these in our human evals that it's like, I kind of had my own little rhythm where I wanted to shut out everything else and just listen as closely as possible. So I would just kind of lay on the floor like starfish and listen to it. But and when you're doing that, you can just catch all of these little things where you're like, what? Wait, what? Like, was that a southern draw or was that an awkward laugh? And so, yeah, we just caught these like little things as we went over time that we ended up, course correcting. But
Now I'm just worried people are gonna like listen to this podcast, starfished on the floor, and be like, "Wait a second, Arvind doesn't sound quite real. Did Arvind ever exist?"
Is he a real person? I don't know.
jury's out.
Well, the last thing I have to ask, so there's two people, or two voices, I should say, because they're not people, but like, did you have names for them? Like, how did you refer to them as you were developing it?
At one time, they did have names. Their names were Alex and Andrew, and they would kick off the podcast saying it was the Alex and Andrew show. Over time, at the advice of our responsible AI council, we ended up removing the name for both podcasts and for the summary one, just to not humanize the AI, make sure that the user understands very clearly that this is AI generated. So yeah, over time we ended up removing it, but yeah, at one time we did start with names.
Because the pirate Southern drawl wouldn't have given it away. That these weren't humans anyways.
That
but
person may exist, and they may be listening to this podcast right now, Arvind, and you're hurting their pirate Southern feelings.
Or
So-
you guys could record the next one and try to just keep it consistent. Even I don't know how you're gonna combine pirate and Southern draw together, but you got some time to work on it.
No, I'm liking this rebrand. Welcome to the Steven and Arvind show. That seems on brand, right?
Welcome to
Arvind.
the
Yeah, there
Stephen
you
and
go.
Arvind show.
I'm not even gonna try doing accents. That just is not gonna end well.
I think I can only do one. I can't do both. I can just do the pirate or the Southern.
It's acquired skill.
See, that's why it's AI. Only AI could do it. That can combine both of those, right?
The power of AI.
Putting it to good use, it would seem. Yay! What an awesome way to wrap up this episode. Cass and Cammi, huge kudos to you and the entire teams for getting this amazing feature out. And it's great that customers are responding so positively to it. So everyone out there, you all should get out and try this feature if you haven't already. So that said, we want to say thank you so much to Cass and Cammi for joining us on this episode after summer break. Cass, Cammi, where can people find out more information about you?
Well, the only place you'll find me is LinkedIn, probably. I'm pretty low key on the social media. So yeah, LinkedIn is the right spot.
Excellent. Do you have a handle that you could share? Or
Oh, I think it's just my name, but my full name's Cassandra. So search that.
Cassandra Weber. Cool.
And what about you, Cammi?
Yeah, you can also find me on my LinkedIn. I think I'm under Cammi Mejia, but I think it's like linkedin.com/in/Camille-Mejia, because that is also my full name. So lots of nicknames going around, I guess.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to have links for both of those in the notes below. If you want to learn more about OneDrive as a whole, get the latest and greatest, be sure to check out the blog at aka.ms/OneDrive/blog. We have a monthly office hours. It's the third Wednesday of every month. You can sign up for that at aka.ms/OneDrive office hours. The last topic we had there was about document library improvements by Lincoln Damaris from our team. Phenomenal session. You can check it out on our community learning YouTube channel as well. You can find me on LinkedIn at srice08 and Arvind Mishra at Arvind Mishra1.
Cool. As always, we love hearing from you, our listeners. You can reach us on Twitter at OneDrive. If you got a question, just tag it with #SyncUp. You can visit our page for links, resources, and more at aka.ms/syncup.
You can also send us questions directly by emailing syncupquestions@microsoft.com. Don't forget to subscribe to SyncUp wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoy SyncUp or find it useful, tell your friends. Word of mouth is the best way to get people engaged and help us grow the show. Of course, if you're curious about other Microsoft podcasts, you can check out aka.ms/Microsoft/podcast, or find your favorite Microsoft Learn documentation and feed it into the audio overview feature. And there you go, your own personal Microsoft podcast. As always, a huge thanks to Aaron for making this podcast possible as well.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to Sync Up. We have been your hosts, Stephen and Arvind, and we'll catch up with you next month.